Bayless and Stephen A. Smith.
How are you?
What's going on? Good morning. How y'all doing?
We're doing well.
All right.
Very much. We hope everyone at home is doing well. We have a fully packed show for you.
I have never been more excited.
I know. We have a lot going on today. Jeannie Buss will be here. The woman in charge of the Lakers, here to talk about the state of the team, Kobe Bryant and her brother, Jim Buss. All things.
Hot seat.
Hot seat is right. Plus, Thursday Night Football, San Diego, Denver, who wins? Peyton Manning takes on Phillip Rivers. That discussion ahead in just a few moments. But first, there's a report out that there was more than anger issues that led to Percy Harvin's trade. According to Mike Freeman of Bleacher Report, the Seahawks trade that stunned many revolves around a wide receiver allegedly disrespecting his quarterback. Freeman reports the main issue with Wilson is some players think he's too close to the front office, doesn't always take the blame if he makes a mistake, and he isn't, quote, black enough for some in that particular locker room. At the end of the day, the brass didn't want a divided locker room, so they chose, obviously, the quarterback. Stephen A., I'm going to ask you your reaction to this report.
First of all, I'm not going to question the validity of Mike Freeman. He's a colleague, known him for years, extremely reputable, has a good reputation, tremendous reporter. That's what they say about him. Don't know him, not personal friends or anything like that, but from what I know about him, I definitely have profound respect for his work. Having said all of that, we do have to qualify it by saying there are anonymous sources here. He acknowledges in his story that the Seattle Seahawks would categorically deny that there's any truth to this. So we have to qualify our statements by saying if, as in if it is true that indeed this is the kind of acrimony that exists in the Seattle Seahawks locker room. And this is the reason why there's no excuse for it. It's incredibly insulting, particularly to Russell Westbrook. And I did say Russell Wilson. I'm sorry. I apologize. Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm. It's almost time for.
Yeah, I understand. But, you know, I mean, Russell Wilson. I'm sorry. Russell Wilson. It's extremely disrespectful to him. But it's also not a surprise because it is indicative of a problem that has permeated throughout the black community for many, many years. It's not the majority. It's not most. It's not all. But some are significant enough when you consider the fact that people tried to define blackness. We had this issue when it came to the bullying scandal with Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin, because Jonathan Martin went to Stanford and he was educated and he carried himself in a certain kind of way that brothers in the locker room felt like Richie Incognito was more of a brother than Jonathan Martin. When you have those kind of things, that level of ignorance sifting through our community, it has been nothing short of a virus that has existed for quite some time, and it needs to be put to bed. Black folks come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. We are not one monolithic group. Every single black person doesn't look alike. We don't think alike. We don't act alike. We don't harness the same beliefs. But that does in no way does that diminish our blackness or serve to leave us less than authenticated as a black person. And any black person that believes otherwise is ignorant, they're stupid, they're foolish, and more importantly, they need to be called out. And I'm quite sure they would never attach their name to such a story like this, Skip, Kerry, because they know there can be no excuse for it. Bill Cosby had this issue where this is a man that preached about the importance of education and millions upon millions of dollars he gave to Spelman and Morehouse and what have you. And the second that he called us on the carpet about this as a community, the same community he helped uplift, they deserted this man, okay? It's been a problem that has gone on for quite some time. I had to cover it with T.O. and Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb, I always felt he should have been a bit more outspoken. OK, but at the same time, I recognize the fact this brother is intelligent. He was well raised. His parents are wonderful. His family's wonderful. He's intelligent. He's an upstanding young man. And because he disagreed with Terrell Owens, you had people questioning him about that, too. It's always, always, always been a problem. I think the last part I'm going to say is this, Skip. I think one of the things that cannot be ignored and it can't be shoved aside, whether it was a Donovan McNabb back in the day, whether it's perceived as being a Russell Wilson now, those who successfully go about the business of ingratiating themselves with the franchise, the hierarchy, management, coaches, et cetera, the fellas who don't have that kind of relationship with the powers that be, you are usually perceived as a company guy.
Okay.
But I got news for you. A company guy doesn't mean that you're any less black.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, I appreciate what you just said. Although you began by vouching for certainly the reporting credibility of one Mike Freeman, I don't know Mike. I do know his reputation, and it is good.
Yes, that's what I meant.
But when it comes to this story, I'm a little unsure of the reporting here because this was written more in column form, more in opinion form or impression form. It's not deep in hardcore, detailed reporting. There's not even one anonymous quote used here. It's just that he has spoken to some people inside the locker room. And before we give this issue the depth of credibility that it would deserve, we need to know how many players are split over this issue that we just dealt with, or just the Russell Wilson issue in big picture.
Yeah.
Is it 2 players who believe this, or is it 25? Because I'm unclear reading this column-like report here. He just, twice he says, though some in the Seattle organization will deny this, this is the way it is. There's an element of this going on. Again, 2-player element or 25-player, because there's a big gap there, right? If a couple of players are grousing to Mike Freeman about that, that's one thing. If it's close to a full-scale revolt against the quarterback, and you talked about a team divided, if it's divided over the quarterback, that's a big issue. You can be divided over certain things, but when it comes to the quarterback, a la T.O. versus Donovan McNabb, battle lines drawn across the locker room floor, that's an issue that will split the football team, because we all know quarterback is the single most important position, I believe, in sports as it pertains to the locker room dynamic.
Sure.
Okay? So I'm a little cloudy here on just how deep this issue runs. The he's not black enough issue, or as he says, the main issue is that they think Russell is too close to management. Well, that's a little different issue, though it could sort of bleed into this other issue. But is that the problem, or is it that Russell, according to this report, doesn't take enough blame, that he's, not that he points fingers, but he doesn't accept enough blame? How many great quarterbacks do we know who won't, like Peyton Manning, will not accept blame? It almost goes with the position. It's like the thing they say about the general. The general can't accept blame because he's got to be the leader. So after a while, now if he starts pointing fingers, that's a problem. But accepting blame occasionally can humble you a little bit and ingratiate you a little deeper with your teammates. So I don't know, is Russell starting to run into that? Now remember, losing intensifies all these issues. So all of a sudden the team that I thought had a chance to go 15-1 is 3-3, and all of a sudden these
issues.
It's incendiary.
I'm willing to appreciate the perspective that you're providing, and I understand it, but allow me, and I say it with all due respect, to just sort of provide an education about a black man in a relatively prominent position and what he has to go through from time to time. When Donovan McNabb was the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, T.O. wanted a new contract. T.O. wasn't going to get a new contract. Donovan McNabb, obviously the face of the franchise with some degree of clout, took the position that I'm not going to get involved. Fair enough. But then turned around and got involved by helping out Brian Westbrook.
Okay.
It resonated with Terrell Owens, and that was the divide that took place. Within the locker room, it could have been something that's perceived as just that. And by the way, back then they were saying the same thing you brought up about this particular report by Mike Freeman. Now, we don't know how many. Was it 2? Was it 25 or whatever? But we all knew it to be true because that locker room was divided as to who wanted T.O. to go, who wanted T.O. to stay. What was undeniable was the fact that Donovan McNabb was the face of the franchise, that he had a pipeline to upper management, and people looked at him and looked for him to speak up on their behalf to use that influence. And when he failed to do so, rather than just looking at it on a case-by-case basis, you did have some people who would sit there and try to come across or try to disseminate a message privately, tacitly, that he wasn't a quote-unquote brother, instead of taking into account all the dynamics. So Donovan McNabb had to go through that. Yeah. I don't think there's anybody in television today that could speak more about this particular issue pertaining to Russell Westbrook better than Donovan McNabb. Now we get to Russell Wilson. So here's the deal. Now we get to Russell Wilson. And what are we doing here? This is a guy that's a quarterback. This is a guy that's on the verge of signing a $100 million contract. He's clearly the face of the franchise. We know he's the future. Pete Carroll loves him. Management loves him. Paul Allen loves him, et cetera, et cetera. And you've got guys that'll look at that and look at how polished he is, how professional he is, how articulate he is, how comfortable they are with Russell Wilson. And they'll say, well, they ain't comfortable with us. Why are they comfortable with him? So these are the kind of things that provoke these kind of thoughts. It ain't Russell Wilson's fault by any stretch of the imagination. The man's, like I said, we come in all different colors, shapes, sizes, etc. This man shouldn't be blamed for any of this, nor should his blackness have to be validated. But what happens is that when you are a black person in a prominent position, and I've said this on many occasions right on this show, Kerry, Skip, I've sat here and I'm on national television every day. And I got people looking at me, you going to talk about this? You can talk about the shooting in Missouri. You going to talk about that? It's a sports show. Stephen A, you talking about that?
Right.
You say, oh, you talking about this, or you talking about this, or you talking about that? Because when you're in this position, particularly as a black man, you don't come to work every day with a job to do. Mm-hmm. You come with a responsibility, and that pressure is constantly thrown in your face. And the second that you don't acquiesce to the wishes of those in less fortunate positions than yourself, you are questioned you are accused of being basically a sellout. Mm-hmm.
Steve,
that is a problem.
It sounds also as if there's a bit of jealousy, if not a lot of jealousy.
Of course, it's a lot. Of course, Kerry. Of course,
that's where it stems from.
Of course, it's a lot of jealousy, but the biggest thing about it is that they're not specific as to what they're feeling. They're willing to throw something out there. And that's why the report by Mike Freeman is very, very believable. Whether it's inside that locker room or not, the fact of the matter is you do have people in the NFL that look at Russell Wilson, how polished he is, how poised he is, the kind of way he's celebrated and lauded and praised. And there's resentment towards this man as opposed to appreciation because they're not viewed in that light. You got a guy like Percy Harvin, but you got beast mode, Marshawn Lynch, tweeting and talking about my man's gone. He wasn't happy about it.
They got my man.
They got my man. It ain't the word he used.
Nope.
So when you look at it from that perspective, you can interpret that as being a knock. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
You understand that it's coming from someplace. Yeah. And unfortunately, with a guy like Russell Wilson, I consider Russell Wilson an incredible role model. I mean, this guy, people looked at him. He's an overachiever. He's a hard worker. He's a high-end producer. He's a champion now. And by the way, he's been doing all of this stuff while being incredibly underpaid because his time's coming.
Sure.
But it's unfortunate that people look at him that way.
So your instincts are always really good in these type situations.
Sure.
This is a gut instinct because, again, we don't have enough detailed reporting
At
here
all.
to base a jump. Hang on just a second. They're talking to my ear.
Yep.
Excuse me. Okay. Bottom line to this. How deep a divide, forget the why of it, how deep a divide do you think there is in the Seattle locker room?
I don't think it's so deep that it can't be resolved because I think the presence of a Richard Sherman in that locker room, a Cam Chancellor in that locker room, a Bobby Wagner and Earl Thomas in that locker room helps. Because you got not only accomplished brothers, but highly intelligent brothers that have put an end to all of this nonsense. Right. But at the same time, don't tell me that there's nobody in that locker room that feels what Mike Freeman, that doesn't feel what Mike Freeman said they feel. There are some people in that locker room that feel that way because anytime you have a black individual that has successfully ingratiated himself with the power structure, there is always resentment coming from others when that happens because they are not in that position.
A battle in the AFC West. San Diego at Denver. Denver, 8.5-point favorite going into the game tonight. On the season, Rivers has had a QBR of 86, and he's completing 67% of his passes, while Manning has a QBR of 88. and completing 68% of his passes. Rivers and Manning have been either first or second in total QBR at the conclusion of every week since week 4 of this season. Tough matchup. Skip Bayless, do you give San Diego a chance to win?
Stephen A. Smith, I give the San Diego Chargers absolutely zero chance to win this game. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong night, wrong stadium, wrong altitude, wrong everything. I'm sorry, I still like the Chargers to be a breakthrough team this year, and I'm going to stick by the Chargers winning the AFC West, but not winning this game on this night. And by the way, the point spread opened at 7. It has been bet all the way up to 8.5. A significant leap. The bandwagon is rolling, and I'm afraid it's going to roll right over the Chargers, who are decimated at all the wrong positions to win this game tonight. Ryan Matthews is still gone with his MCL sprain.
Right.
Danny Woodhead, as you know, unfortunately lost for the year.
Brandon Flowers.
Okay, Brandon Flowers is crucial because San Diego lost this game on that Jamal Charles hit. I don't know if we have that. We could just show it real quick, but Jamal Charles managed to walk through and walk away from that, and he's under the protocol, but he's going to play. Brandon Flowers did walk away from this hit, but he is now under protocol and will not play because of a concussion suffered on this Jamal Charles play. So that is a huge loss because he is obviously their best cornerback.
Oof.
Now, back to Donald Brown is out with a concussion. And they're down to this kid who's been a little bit of a revelation, Brandon Oliver from University of Buffalo, undrafted free agent. But the Chiefs held him to 78 yards rushing at San Diego. I'm not sure he's going to be the difference maker tonight. They're down to their 4th-string center are the Chargers. And Denver right now is clearly playing the best football in the AFC. They are number 1 overall in points scored, as we would all predict, but they are tied for 6th in points allowed, which is a significant upgrade from what they were a year ago. Bingo. Wrong place, wrong time. I'm going 32-17 home team tonight.
Okay. So why are we talking about this? Because I feel exactly the same way.
Well, there we go.
And my biggest thing is this. I'm looking at Phillip Rivers in the year that he's having, and it's been impressive. But obviously, last week was a downer. Could have been looking ahead. I understand that. Flowers being out. You look at Ryan Matthews. We don't know what his status is when he's going to return.
Maybe week 10 or 11.
And here's my thing. They're the number 3 defense in the league and number 3 against the pass, Skip. But guess what? I don't care if you're number 3 against the pass now. What you going to do against Denver? You think you're going to shut down Denver? That's not happening. I mean, Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, Wes Welker, Emmanuel Sanders. This team, as good as San Diego is, you're not shutting those boys down. So it's going to have to be some sort of a shootout, and I don't know if they have it within them this particular night, especially fresh off of losing to Kansas City and losing their premier corner in Flowers. So with all of that being said, I'm going to pick Denver to win this game. I got them winning about 37-20.
37-20. I got 32-17. Okay, look, I'm going far-fetched here. Is there a chance, even a slight chance, that the Denver Broncos will suffer a little bit of a letdown coming off the euphoria, the record-breaking euphoria of Sunday night to Thursday night?
I don't think so.
No.
The only reason I don't feel that way is because it's San Diego.
Yeah.
If it was somebody else, that would be different.
Yeah.
But San Diego, no, there's not going to be a downer with San Diego, especially with San Diego battling you for AFC West.
Sure, and remember, week 15 last year at Denver, San Diego won the game 27-20. I think that the Denver Broncos didn't take them quite seriously enough in that game. You could argue late in the year they caught them right place, right time. But tonight, because of that home loss, then they beat them again, as you recall, in the playoffs at Denver. But I just think that Sunday night will feed right into Thursday night, and they are flying high, and points are going to be scored against this third-best defense.
The Cowboys have won 6 straight games and have the NFL's best record at 6-1. They went into Seattle, beat the champs. DeMarco Murray is running over everyone. Romo has been clutch, but Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders has an article on ESPN.com that says Dallas is overrated. Here's a quote. On a per-play basis, that Cowboys defense that looks so much improved has actually been almost as bad as it was a year ago. Dallas is allowing the same average of 6 yards per play with roughly the same frequency of turnovers. The biggest difference for the defense is actually the offense, which is keeping the defense off the field with those extended run-heavy drives. Schatz saying they're overrated. We welcome in our NFL analyst, Antonio Pierce. We ask, do you agree?
Overall, as a team,
No,
I would say
just defense.
just defense.
Yeah, that's what he's pinning his argument on.
When you look at the stats, I think they are kind of telling. 6 sacks or 7 sacks, I think, as a team.
7, yeah.
Not doing a great job of stopping the run overall as the game goes on. It does help to have an offense, though. Why would you take that away from them? But when you look at the body of work, I think less reps, less plays does hide and hinder some aspects of your game that can be exploded at some time. You look back at last year's game against the Broncos. Wow. I don't see a team like, let's see when they face the Eagles. How is that going to come out? Right? When they got that explosive offense, you got that running back that's similar to yours who can control the football game. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that?
Okay, they are Dallas' second in time of possession, to your point.
Yes.
Okay.
The mere fact that the Dallas Cowboys are second in time of possession leads us to believe that we haven't seen the Cowboys yet from the perspective of what's going to happen when they're put in the predicament where they're getting off the field because they're unable to move the chains because their running game isn't working as effectively as we've seen it work. They're leading the league. They're number 1 in the league in carries and yards. They're the number 1 rushing attack in the NFL. They're 14th in the passing attack, which is no big deal because they're leaning heavily on DeMarco Murray to carry the goods. DeMarco Murray is not only really helping Tony Romo out by putting him in a position where, you don't have to throw, you can engage in play action pass, and, your people can't key on you and use you for target practice the way that they did in the past. But he's also helping the defense immensely because the defense isn't in a position where they can get exposed because they're not spending a lot of time out on the field because Dallas is number 2 in the league in time of possession. Somewhere along the line, I just want the record to show, and I'm going to leave it up to you to remember this and to hold everybody that shows up on this show accountable.
Except me.
You especially.
You especially.
Here's the deal. I never sit there and say Dallas is not going to win games, Dallas is scrubs, they have no talent. What I say is they're an accident waiting to happen. They haven't been that way. Yep. But remember, it doesn't matter whether it's the last game of the regular season. Doesn't matter whether it's a divisional playoff game or beyond. Somewhere before the crown is captured, you're going to have to put up or shut up. And the Dallas Cowboys are going to be in a position where they're operating from a deficit or they don't get to rely on DeMarco Murray. And Tony Romo is going to have to come to the rescue. And that is the moment that I am waiting for. Either Tony Romo has to come to the rescue or the defense is going to have to play stout because they're going to be on the field considerably more than they have been in previous encounters.
Sure.
Those are one of the 2 moments that I'm waiting for. Come talk to me when that happens. Because unless you're telling me that the Dallas Cowboys are going to look this way in terms of time, I'm talking about in terms of time of possession, DeMarco Murray running the football effectively, those 2 ingredients, unless you're telling me that's going to happen all year long and there's going to be no hiccup, at some point it's going to happen. Okay. And that's when I'm going to be sitting back chilling.
Okay. Haven't you admitted on national TV in the last few days that the Dallas Cowboys will make the playoffs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And before the year, you thought they would not make the playoffs?
Well, listen. I thought they wouldn't make the playoffs, but Skip, don't make it that simple. I thought that because I said the wild card usually doesn't come out of the NFC East.
Okay.
That was my position.
All right, fine.
Right? Now they might.
I'm going to invite both of you gentlemen and lady, if you want, to attack my argument here, but I'm going to attack Aaron Schatz's argument.
Sure.
He's pinning it on one number, which is a historically bad Cowboy defense last year allowed 6.1 yards per play.
Right.
They are currently, this Cowboy defense, the new improved one, allowing 6.1 yards per play. I'm here to tell you, you can make numbers dance and say anything you want them to say.
I know that. You do it every day. You do it every day.
Okay? You can make numbers lie. Forgive me for that.
Yeah.
No need.
These numbers, that number lies, and I'll tell you why. There's such a thing to me, watching the football that I've watched these many years, there's such a thing as timely defense. When do you make that stop? What does your team need from your defense at that time? And it will discount and undercut the overall number 6.1. Is that fair to say? Sometimes?
Yeah,
okay.
I would say that.
Okay, let's go back. Now let's look at quickly game to game. At St. Louis, my Dallas Cowboys fall behind 21-0, and they're in big trouble. And the defense is going to have to stop the St. Louis offense, or it's going to be a complete blowout. And what happens? Defense goes stop, hold St. Louis to a field goal, pick 6 by Bruce Carter. Those 4 straight St. Louis possessions, and all of a sudden, my Cowboys are back in the football game. Are those not timely defensive possessions where you have to come up big or you're going to lose the football game, okay?
Yep.
Then what happens against the New Orleans Saints, who rang up an NFL record 40 first downs against my Cowboys a year ago on Sunday Night Football? This Sunday Night Football game, New Orleans at Jerry World, the Dallas Cowboys shut out Drew Brees and company in the first half, and the score was 24-0. 24-0. The defense had to do something pretty good in the first half to shut down Drew Brees and company. Is that fair?
True.
I mean, this was historically bad a year ago, and to shut them out in the first half, and the game was over at halftime, and it wound up 38-17. Houston at Jerry World, it goes to overtime, and I cannot defend what Arian Foster did to my defense because he ran roughshod over my defense through regulation. But Houston won the coin flip in overtime. And guess what my defense did? It stopped Houston's first drive. Stopped them, made them punt. Okay, well, wait a second. That's timely defense. You can't tell me it's overrated when you make that stop so that the offense can go get a field goal. Am I right about that? Is that not a timely stop? Okay, let me finish. Okay. No, I'm going to finish.
Go ahead.
At Seattle, the offense and special teams hand Seattle 17 points. Am I right about that? Just handed it to them. Here, you can have 17 points at home. The score is 10-0 Seattle. And guess what my defense did? It shut down the Seattle running game. Marshawn Lynch goes 61 yards on 10 carries, but on 9 carries, he got only 29 yards. Percy Harvin, 3 carries -1, 3 catches, 0 yards. And that's part of their running game. Russell Wilson, who runs roughshod over people like St. Louis, 2 rushes for 12 yards. They're making timely stops when you have to stay in the game because the offense was and the special teams were killing them in Seattle, and the defense had to hold firm when you had to hold firm. Don't tell me the defense is overrated on timely stops because they are making this happen. And my final point, against Eli Manning in the second half, it's 14-all at halftime. They held Eli and company to 7 second-half points. And when it was time to force the turnover, Barry Church rips it out of Donnell's hands. Am I right about that?
Yep, true.
And it was a key stop in that game and turned the game around. I'm sorry. Yeah, I've got this.
You won.
It's over. If you want to go to break, I can go to break.
Listen, what annoys me about Skip Bayless is that I appreciate the soliloquy that he just went on. But see, he's slick. Because like I told you before, Antonio, Kerry, nothing he said is wrong. It's just flagrantly incomplete. As we dissect this, let's count the ways. Who's quarterbacking in Tennessee and what type of team have they?
I didn't even bring up Tennessee.
Let me finish.
I didn't bring it up.
I'm bringing it up. Chill.
I don't care.
I got you. I got their wins in front of me, okay? So we got Tennessee. We know they're out the way.
Yep.
Remember this dude Davis that's now coaching the St. Louis? I mean, that was like his first start. What, are we really getting caught up in him? Let's stop
Austin
that.
Davis?
Let's stop.
Wait. The guy Brett Favre said might be the next Tom Brady?
Not when what game did he play before that Dallas game? Out of nowhere. Yep. That's what I'm saying. He's thrown into the wolves. So see, the reason I bring that up is because Skip would bring that up if he didn't want to make his argument. But because he wants to make his argument, now he wants to ignore that reality. Okay, let's go down the list of ways. New Orleans, their defense is putrid. We understand what Drew Brees is. We also know what the New Orleans Saints are on the road. Am I correct in saying that? And this is when they had Darren Sproles. Now they don't have Darren Sproles, and they're on the road. Stop it. Then we go Houston. Who's the quarterback there? Ryan Fitzpatrick. Really? You're gonna sit up here and act like it's such a you want a cookie? You're sitting there in overtime against Ryan Fitzpatrick. But that's neither here nor there. Seattle. We start off the show today. What are we talking about? They're a dysfunctional bunch. They don't seem to be together. All I'm saying is this. No, don't get me wrong. I am willing to concede Dallas is better than expected. Dallas has been performing. Dallas deserves credit. We can't ignore that they're number 2 in time of possession. We can't ignore that they have the number 1 running attack in the NFL. Plus, they're number 1 not just in yardage, but attempts. But also, Skip Bayless, what I'm trying to say to you is that everything that I brought up, if you didn't want to make make the argument that you were making. You would have brought those things up because you bring this stuff up about people all the time. But you're ignoring it here. The quality of quarterbacks, the quality of competition.
You got your computer up. You can read it for me. What was Austin Davis against the Dallas Cowboys? Do you have his numbers? I got them right here if you don't have them.
Go ahead.
30 of 42 for 327 and 3 touchdowns.
All right. Did he give up a pick 6? Did he show up in the second half after they were up 21 to nothing?
I'm just saying. 30 of 42 for 327.
Wait a minute. You sit up there, you go off on Jay Cutler. Why? Because Jay Cutler hasn't produced. You gave up on him. A couple of years ago, or last year rather, you gave up on Tony Romo. Why? For obvious reasons. What I'm saying to you is simply this. The jury is still out on the Dallas Cowboys. Forget the fact that they're number one in terms of a rushing attack. They're number one in attempts. They are running.
Is the defense overrated?
No, the defense is not overrated. But nobody up here said they were. We just sat there and said, wait a minute. Are you? Let me ask you this question. Forget all of that. Let's put this man on the spot. Skip Bayless.
Oh, I'm scared.
Are you willing? No. Oh, you better be. Are you willing to sit there and say, let's go with your prediction that the Dallas Cowboys are going to win the NFC East?
Yeah, and that was preseason, correct?
Well,
it was on opening day.
Unlike you, I never fail to give you credit when you deserve it. But here's the point. Are you willing to say that the Dallas Cowboys?
Credit?
No, you don't give me.
I'll give you credit.
You don't sit there and say, are you willing to say for the record that the reason the Dallas Cowboys will win the NFC East is because of their defense?
Yeah, I am.
You say, hold on. Stop the presses.
Yeah.
You're willing to say that the Dallas Cowboys are going to win the NFC East because of their defense?
Yeah. It's way better than it was last year.
As you would say, I'm happy to have you on the record.
All right, Antonio. Weigh in, sir.
First off, I'm going to say this. I don't think DeMarco Murray can keep up the pace of carries.
He's on pace for 427.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. You've seen the guy who's running down the sideline roll over an ankle. You never know what's going to happen on that one play where the running attack is gone. And now Romo has to go back to throwing the ball 40, 45, 50 times a game. Now you're saying your defense is going to have more opportunities to show are they that good. And I don't think so. I don't think they have a pass rusher. I don't think the secondary is good enough yet. And again, they have played good football year to date, right? Right now, they're playing good football. But have they really faced a juggernaut offensively? Have they?
I think Drew Brees can be at times.
Not now.
Not on the road. Not on the road.
Not without Darren Sproles and on the road.
Yeah,
and their defense not letting them, not getting them on the field enough.
I would like to see when they
shut out that offense in the first half. That's pretty good.
No, they played lights out, hands down. I give them credit for that one. But again, New Orleans is not the team that they are when they're at home. When Philly comes to town, or when they have to go to Philly,
all right, we'll find out.
That's going to be big.
But I like that. I like the idea of that. I think Philly's going to struggle in Dallas, even though they might be able to win that game. But I want to see Dallas in Philadelphia too.
After they get 10 days off to get ready for that game?
I think they might struggle even this week with a guy like Deshaun Jackson coming, who always has big games, big games against Dallas Cowboys.
Wait. You picking the Redskins?
I'm not there yet.
You're not there yet?
There's nothing to think about.
You're getting there, I think.
The Redskins, where?
Not there yet.
Where's the game? Where's this game?
Monday.
It's Monday.
It's Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
In Dallas?
Yeah.
Oh, please.
Lights, man.
Please. Redskins not doing anything in that game.
I'm not going to go there yet.
You were a very good linebacker in your day. Rolando McClain playing at a pretty high level.
Yes.
Justin Durant playing at a pretty high level.
Good compliment, yes.
Good compliment. Bruce Carter has been out for now, I think it's 3 games, and he is due back for the Redskins.
Really good linebacker.
He's pretty good, right?
Yes.
Okay, there's a kid named DeMarcus Lawrence, and I'm going to throw his name out because he's going to be significant down the stretch. He was, I think, the second pick in the second round of this last draft. He has not been able to play yet. From out of Boise State, he can rush the passer. Just one reason why Michael Sam was cut is that they're starting to get healthier at that position. I think they will start to rush the passer down the stretch.
Well, an independent report says school academic advisors steered University of North Carolina athletes into sham classes over an 18-year period, but does not directly implicate coaches or athletic administrators. In the scheme, the report released Wednesday says academic advisors in North Carolina's athletic department colluded with the manager in the African and Afro-American Studies Department to take advantage of no attendance, no professor classes that eventually boosted athletes' grade point average and helped keep them eligible. The classes ended in 2011. The NCAA reopened its own investigation into UNC this summer, but it is not known whether it will take action as a result of this report. Stephen A., I'll ask you this. What do you believe the fallout will be from the UNC academic scandal?
I definitely think that their heads will roll. There are some people that would be fired. There's no doubt about that because folks are going to get in CYA mode, cover your you know what. But I want names. I want faces attached to these names. I want these people to be summarily dismissed, and I want a more thorough investigation to find out exactly what coaches were involved. If you could get as far as to find out the information that you have already found, you got this professor Julius Narangaro or whatever his name was. He was the professor of record for many of the fake classes. You've got a woman by the name of Deborah Crowder. She also was involved in this scam.
She's non-academic. She's not a professor. She's like an administrative assistant.
Yes. All I'm saying to you is this: administrative officials, professors, anybody who was involved in something this egregious, there is no question that heads should roll. And by the way, the NCAA should be involved in terms of potential sanctions. You're talking about years and years and years of potentially ineligible players being allowed to play and to participate, not because they went to class and got their grades embellished. They didn't even go to the class. It was a fake class.
They had to do a paper.
They had to do a paper, really.
Filled with quotes. They were handed.
Listen. We understand this. Primarily, it was supposed to be football players. There's an email that they have in the New York Times article where there was an email from one of the women's basketball coaches to the administrator. You're talking about 15 potential basketball players that may have been involved, 329 football players that may have been involved. Who knows what else? Something like this, as far as I'm concerned, the investigation should be far more pronounced, or at least the results from the investigation should be far more pronounced than this. And the fact that it is not reeks of something, of classism to some degree. We understand that the University of North Carolina is held in higher regard than most institutions of higher learning in this nation. If this were most other programs, who knows what would happen. I'm looking at this, the same repercussions should definitely apply to the University of North Carolina. You've got the chancellor, for crying out loud, Carol L. Folt, on the record talking about how UNC has already established myriad policies to prevent a recurrence, which means you're acknowledging that it occurred. And if you're acknowledging that it occurred, we need heads to roll. You can't have something like this happen. You can't have these individuals who are supposed to be going to school for an education literally being allowed to not even being allowed to flagrantly bypass it, Skip. These people did it for them. And they're supposed to be folks that are responsible enough to make sure that folks are going to class and actually earning their grades. This is something I find to be very egregious. I'm sorry.
Okay, but can I ask the bigger picture question here?
Sure.
Who are we kidding?
Yeah.
About several issues here. Number one, just to be fair, in the big scope of things, you don't think this goes on at other schools in other ways, shapes, or forms?
Of course.
I mean, you say they go to school for an education. How many kids go to school just to play professional football or basketball?
Sure.
How many other professors that an athletic department is aware of are lenient on football and basketball players, and so the kids are sort of funneled to their classes? Do you think that goes on at other schools? I do.
Of course.
So do I.
Now, again, do they get away with just one sort of bogus paper? No, they have to show up to some classes. But I think there are a lot of kids. The term student athlete offends me because it's a contradiction, because we know that many of the athletes are not really students. And how many of those student athletes actually attend many classes? I don't know for sure, but my better judgment tells me oftentimes not many, especially during their sports term.
During their season.
Yeah, they just can't go to class. So let's be clear about that. But back to this. Who are we kidding about the coaches involved? Because the report commissioned by the school basically let the two coaches in question off the hook. Roy Williams in basketball, and then Coach Butch Davis, who now does work for this network, in football at that time. Do I believe they had no knowledge of this? It's just hard for me to believe. They're too smart. I know both guys. I know Butch better than I know Roy, but these are smart men, and I just don't believe they were in the dark about what was going on.
I agree.
Here, right?
I agree with that.
Okay. I don't have any proof of that. The report gives a couple of inklings that could be proof of that.
Right.
Okay.
I guess where you and I are divided on this, Skip Bayless, is that I recognize that we shouldn't be surprised by any of this. I understand that, y'all. I truly do. What I'm saying is there's a difference between taking meaningless classes and having a laissez-faire approach to your grades or whatever the case may be, and literally having fake classes established by an institution where it's given the impression you actually take this class, you go to this class.
But that's a fair point. I'm thinking
that's my
in
point.
college, we knew of the classes to take where you get a GPA booster, but you're saying creating a class is a whole nother thing.
That's it. And then when you bring that, don't tell me everybody's doing that. I don't believe that.
Okay, so we should actually pin this on this one woman who has since retired.
Deborah Crowder.
Yes, Deborah Crowder. Again, she was like an administrative assistant. She kind of ran the department, but she's not a professor. She's not an academic. But she felt sympathy for these struggling student athletes. She felt sympathy, and she thought she should give them a break by helping get them through with an A or a B+, and they all got A or B+. But what is stunning about this story, 1,500 of the, what's the total? 3,100. 1,500 were just regular students who also benefited from the fake class. They called it the paper class because you need to do one paper.
Which means the problem is far more pervasive.
1,500. Well, why did she have sympathy for 1,500 other kids?
That's right.
Who were just regular students. I have no idea.
So maybe it wasn't sympathy at all. You were just corrupt.
Well, it probably was also a little bit of everyone started to talk about it. They couldn't keep their mouths quiet. So you can't let one go.
You would think that is so egregious and so stunning that people would talk about it and it would get back to the right or wrong people who would then say, hey, what the heck's going on? And the president in the statement yesterday said, this was so stunning that we still can't sort of get comfortable.
So stunning over 18 years, nearly 2 decades.
One last statement. You ain't heard about nothing like that at Duke.
Or Vanderbilt, if I may throw that out.
Or UCLA.
Well, the reason why I bring Duke
or UCLA
is down the road.
Right
down the road. Not a bad look. Not a good look for Carolina. No.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
The Boston Red Sox have won the World Series.
The new college football playoff.
The Seminoles have completed the perfect season.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Lakers president and governor Jeannie Buss says she does have the final say, or as her late great father, Dr. Jerry Buss, would say, the final hammer. Jeannie Buss, welcome to the show today. We're really happy to have you. How do you feel?
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
I know you're doing the car wash, so you've had a lot of interviews. Ours, obviously, will be the best of them all. And I spoke with you during the commercial break. Huge Laker fan. So I'm speaking, obviously, as a journalist, but also as a fan. The last couple of years have been rough, documented. We thought we had Phil Jackson. You mentioned it was betrayal when he wasn't hired. We'll talk about that later. We had Mike D'Antoni, a couple of losing seasons, Kobe injured. The list goes on. And right now, the state of the Lakers seems like it's a state of emergency. What is going on with the organization?
I think that certainly when Kobe suffered the Achilles injury, that was devastating. And the organization is just trying to get back on its feet. Kobe's back, looks, as good as Kobe has looked in years. We have new young players. We have a new coach. So, I'm excited about our future, but I understand the concern. We didn't make the playoffs last year, and that is not anything that we are used to in the Laker organization.
The script has always been win a championship. It doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon.
I don't know how you can say that because every year, I really don't like when a front office can say, well, we don't have the players that we need to win a championship. How do you know that in October? Let the players, let the coach, let them play the season out. Let them try to accomplish and take steps towards that goal. And I can tell you that every year that Phil Jackson coached, he always had a path to a championship. Sometimes it was a straight line, and sometimes it was over a lot of hurdles. But he always started the season with that goal and allowed the players to have a chance to show what they have.
Go ahead, Skip.
You want to go?
You want me to go?
Yes, sir.
I thought you're the man here. You're the NBA guy. Okay, well, I'll ask this. Okay. This is what I don't understand, and just help me out and forgive me for not getting this. But You hold the title of president of the Los Angeles Lakers. You sit on the board of governors of the National Basketball Association. Yet it appears to us on a routine daily basis that your brother, who is a year older than you are, does operate with final say on basketball matters. Why is that?
I defer to our basketball front office to make basketball decisions. I've empowered them. They have a vision. Mitch Kupchak, my brother Jim Buss, see the game a similar way. They have a plan that they need to execute. We need to give them time to show us what that plan is. And I'm not a basketball expert. I wouldn't be a person that would be making basketball decisions. So I have faith in them as a front office to do what needs to be done to take the Lakers back into contention.
But you have been a part of this for a long. You grew up in this. So I have to respect your basketball acumen. You've been with Phil Jackson for a long time. I have to respect what you've learned from him. So I have to respect that your better judgment would occasionally tell you, no, we should do this instead of that.
Well, I think that when there was an opportunity, when Mike Brown left and they were looking for a new coach, they spoke to Phil. There was that impression that Phil got and that I got that the job was his if he felt that he wanted to come back and do it. He needed 48 hours to talk to his family, to get medical clearance, because if he committed to the job, he wanted to make sure that he could fulfill that obligation. He was coming off a knee replacement. Yeah. So when they made the decision to go with Mike D'Antoni, I was hurt because I have a bias towards Phil. I wanted Phil to come back and coach. And so I understand Jimmy and Mitch felt that Mike D'Antoni was better suited for the team, and I'll never agree to that as long as
so why didn't you drop the hammer at that point and say, no, we're going to do this?
At that time, my father was still alive, and I wasn't in the role that I'm in now. And certainly having Phil around was maybe a source of conflict for me and my brother, but now Phil has moved on. He's got another job. There is no source of conflict, and I'm behind our front office 100%, and I feel that my job is to give them all the tools that they need to be successful. So we have the best fans, the best arena, the best broadcast partners, the best sponsors. I've done all that I need to do. Now it's up to them to do their job.
It's lovely seeing you, by the way. Let me say that first. Thank you very much for being on the show. Where is your brother? I mean, when I say that and I ask that question, I mean, how actively involved is he on a day-to-day basis in doing his role with the Los Angeles Lakers?
Well, he lives in Los Angeles. He loves the Lakers. He and Mitch, when I walk by Mitch's office, they're in there together, talking, discussing, planning. I think that they've got a vision of what they want to accomplish, and they've assured me that they can get the job done, because even after, when Phil was looking at other opportunities, I asked if there was any role that Phil could take in the Laker organization, because I wanted selfishly for him to stay in Los Angeles. And my brother said that there was no room for Phil in the organization or for anybody else. So he and Mitch have it covered. They've assured me that they can get the job done.
Do you believe that your brother came to that conclusion strictly due to basketball reasons, or is there personal animus between himself and Phil Jackson that leads to him wanting just him and Mitch to run the show and not including Phil Jackson?
Well,
at the time,
I can't answer for Mitch or for Jimmy, but I could understand where they may feel there was too many cooks in the kitchen. And Phil is a very strong personality, and Phil has a very clear vision of what he believes the game should be about. And if that isn't if they weren't on the same page that way, I could see where that would not make them comfortable, and that they would feel that it would be in conflict with what they were trying to accomplish.
Obviously, anybody that knows the game of basketball has profound respect for Mitch Kupchak. Mitch Kupchak has established himself as a stout executive in the NBA, and anybody associated with the NBA knows what Mitch Kupchak brings to the table. The Lakers organization missed out on getting Chris Paul because Commissioner Stern at the time had something to do with that, nixing that deal. But outside of that, when you look at marquee guys, most recently a Dwight Howard, or over this summer, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, guys like that, usually the Lakers organization was synonymous with getting the guys, people didn't believe that they would be able to get Shaquille O'Neal. Once upon a time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Gil Goodrich goes to Utah, and y'all got rights, and then from Utah, you end up getting Magic Johnson, all of this other stuff. The Lakers always seem to find a way because the Lakers always seem to be a coveted destination. Would you consider the Lakers organization under the stewardship of Jim Buss as the face of basketball operations? Would you still consider the Lakers a desired organization in the eyes of players out there now that your daddy, God rest his soul, is gone?
Absolutely. Any player that wouldn't see the benefits of wearing a Lakers jersey, playing in an arena like Staples Center in front of the fans that the Lakers have, I think we're a top destination for any free agent. So, yes, I'm not worried about attracting free agents.
Last question. I want to remind everybody, just to make sure, piggybacking off Skip, you do have the power. Like, you choose to let your brother, if he can make final decisions of basketball operations. But at any given moment, it is clear that Jeannie Buss can overrule, can usurp his authority. Is that correct?
Yes, and I announced that because I wanted everybody, the fans, the organization, our partners to understand that there is one ultimate authority, one source of accountability, and that lies with me. And certainly I have the ability to remove any employee from their position, and I've empowered our front office to accomplish a goal, but they understand there has to be a timeline, and if they're not successful, then a change has to happen.
What's the timeline?
Your brother was quoted as saying 3 years.
Right, and that's
so
what
after
I've been
3 years, so 2 has already been in place. Is this final year?
No, I would say this is the year 1, and there would be 2 more years. And so, and I have confidence that they have everything that they need to put this team back to where they should be. And I have no doubts that Kobe is healthy and that he will contribute, and he is worth every penny that we're paying him. And he's a once in a generation talent, and we are blessed to have him on our team.
And speaking of that, there's a story I'm sure you're aware of running currently in ESPN the magazine by Henry Abbott, whose premise is that the biggest reason the Lakers haven't been able to land a free agent is Kobe Bryant. And key quote near the end of the piece from a Lakers insider is, Kobe wants to win, but only as long as he's the reason we are winning. Your reaction to that?
Show me the free agent that isn't coming to the Lakers because of Kobe Bryant, and then I'll show you a loser. Because if they're afraid to play with Kobe Bryant, then they don't belong on the Lakers.
Would Dwight Howard qualify?
Dwight Howard, Dwight Howard was a wonderful player for the Lakers. When he came here, he did everything that he was asked to do. I regret the fact that he played from day one. His back wasn't 100%. He shouldn't have played. I remember the day the trade was made, people called me wanting to buy tickets, and I said, why don't you wait till January, because we don't know when Dwight's going to play. But he wanted to be part of it because we thought it was going to be a championship year. He was a great person in the organization, but you have to look at when they removed Mike Brown and there was an opportunity to bring Phil back. They chose Mike D'Antoni, whose offense did not suit Dwight Howard. So Dwight had to feel that, for the success that he wanted in his career, to bring out the best in Dwight, he saw that playing for Mike D'Antoni wasn't going to make Dwight Howard the best player he could be. And what I love about our league is, it's collectively bargained that the players have opportunities to be free agents. And at points in their career, they get to choose exactly the situation that they want to play in. So I see that the reason Dwight didn't stay was he saw that the team was being built for Steve Nash, not for Dwight.
We welcome back Jeannie Buss to the desk. Thank you so much for being here. I want to read a quote to you. This was Phil Jackson, your fiance, talking about his relationship with management just as he left the Lakers his last year coaching. I haven't spoke to Jeannie Buss this year. As far as management, if you want to call it that, there's really not a relationship. Jim, your brother, meanwhile, has said he considers Phil, quote, family. Jeannie, you talked about betrayal when they decided to go with D'Antoni instead of Phil Jackson 7 games into the 2012-2013 season. You mentioned moments ago before we went to break that they thought D'Antoni was a better coach. How is that possible to think D'Antoni would be a better coach than Phil Jackson for that team?
For how they see the game, that's they felt, and that's the position that they're in to make that decision. So I'm biased, and I like, my first choice will always be Phil, and I understand it.
Jeannie, that's hard. That's hard to stomach. Here's why. Because like Skip says, we both believe you know more basketball than you're giving yourself credit for. Point number 2, you know Phil. Point number 3, the math ain't hard. 11 championships for Phil Jackson, 5 with the Los Angeles Lakers. Not a single championship for Mike D'Antoni. Not to knock him, but that's just the truth. But last but not least, the Laker fan base. We all knew who they wanted. How come Jeannie Buss didn't step in at that particular moment and overrule that decision?
My father was still alive. He was still calling the ultimate shots. And I think that he wanted my brother to be successful in the position that he groomed him for. And, that is how Jimmy sees the game, and that's what he wanted to do. And I think as a father, as he's done for me many times, he's supported my decision making. And I think that that's what my father did for my brother. And I think we all had high hopes when D'Antoni came to the Lakers. I took it hard just for my own personal reasons, and that's, my own bias. But I think that when D'Antoni came, he had a great opportunity here. And, his quarterback, Steve Nash, was hurt a lot of the time. So they never really got, we never really got to see what they envisioned for that team.
How much does Phil still want to coach?
It's the physical limitations for him. It's the traveling that's so hard. And I don't think he was really looking to come back to coach. But when they approached him, when Mike Brown left, and my dad knew that my father was ill and that we had this superstar lineup of, Steve Nash and Dwight Howard and Pau Gasol and Kobe, we really thought that we had a championship team. And I think Phil thought about coming back because he wanted to win a championship for my father, whose goal was to get to 17 championships. Like what the Celtics have. So, it was just a painful time for me.
Skip, forgive me for going from Phil Jackson back to Kobe Bryant, but I must in this respect. Some would argue that Kobe Bryant is highly disrespected by some folks. Critics out there, what have you. You've got people questioning his greatness, how much he's got left, etc. You look at the article by Henry Abbott. You've got some anonymous sources in there. Certainly some of it emanating from the Lakers organization, it appears. What level of support would you qualify Kobe as having specifically from the Lakers organization? I'm not talking about from you, because clearly it's there. I'm talking about from the Lakers organization as a whole, particularly in the last 2 years of his career.
I like to think that he knows how much we're devoted to him because we made a commitment to him by re-signing him before he came back to play from that injury. And, that we are giving him everything that he needs to get that 6th ring, because I really want to see Kobe get that 6th ring. If in that article that you're talking about, if it is anybody in our organization that contributed anonymously to this article, I will find out, and that person will not be on Laker payroll anymore. I won't tolerate that. It's ridiculous. It's that story is, it's not how we feel. I'm here. I want to make sure that people know that's not how the Buss family feels, and that we are, Kobe is worth every penny that we're paying to him.
So what do you expect from Kobe entering his 19th season, coming off, obviously, Achilles rupture and a knee issue? Can he be Kobe Bryant again?
Since he was 18 years old, I've watched him evolve his game. And he knows the game better than anybody. And not only will he contribute on the court, but he will contribute to the young players that we're developing. Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson. And, when he got hurt, when he hurt the Achilles, the first thing Phil said to me was, Jeannie, Kobe will come back, but it's going to take a year. He needs a year. Kobe tried to come back after 6 months because last year he was making $30 million. And I know Kobe, he felt the responsibility of that contract, and he hurried back. And it was too soon, and he got hurt again. And so now we're over a year past the injury, and Kobe looks like Kobe. And I think he's going to contribute on the court, and we are blessed to have a talent such as him.
I believe in the Black Mamba, but he can't do it by himself. So since you have firing power, okay, if Kobe Bryant is not given the help, the assistance that he needs, well, what does that say about the people in positions that are supposed to get him that help that he needs? What's going to happen to them?
Well, I mean, it's everybody has high expectations for this Laker franchise. Laker Nation really owns this team, and they dictate to us, what they want to see. And so we have to, make sure, I think that we have a team that's young. I think Jeremy Lin deserves a chance to see how he does. When I met him when he came to the office, I said, welcome home. You should have been here from the beginning. I think we have pieces of the puzzle. And let's not, I don't like when the front office decides in October we don't have the pieces that we need and we're going to have a bad season. Let's let it play out. Let's watch what happens.
Any prediction for this year? Playoffs?
Yeah, I would anticipate playoffs.
All right.
Sure.
The San Antonio Spurs are an overwhelming choice to repeat as NBA champions, while LeBron James is the favorite to win the Most Valuable Player award, according to the 2014-2015 survey of NBA general managers. Perhaps the most interesting part of this survey, though, is that with a game on the line, 76.9% of NBA GMs want Kevin Durant to take that last shot. 77% essentially. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James finished far behind at a tie for second. Only 7.7% of GMs want them to take that last shot. Skip Bayless.
Interesting statistics.
What do you make
Thank
of
you
it?
for reading those. Mr. Smith, obviously, over the years on this show, I have taken a lot of flack for questioning LeBron's clutch gene,
oh boy,
if you will. His late game, last shot intangibles, if you will. So, I would say this poll makes my case, because 68% of GMs polled say LeBron will be this year's MVP. Got no problem with that. I would agree. You might not. We'll talk about that at another hour. But also in this poll, 77% of these GMs say they would want Kevin Durant and not LeBron James taking their last shot. LeBron finishing, as you point out, a distant second at only 7.7%.
Or 8% if we round up.
8% if we want to round up.
Sure.
Tied with the great Kobe Bryant, who's coming off all sorts of injuries, and we're not even sure if Kobe will be Kobe in his 19th season. So that part, the Kobe part's predictable. But these two stats make my case, I would say, that the GMs are with me on this. They're not trusting LeBron James to take their last shot, even though they're saying he is still the best player in the game. Interesting.
So what are we saying? I mean,
I'm just saying what I said.
That LeBron James, they wouldn't trust LeBron James? Is
Yeah. They want Kevin Durant taking the last shot.
Well, who the hell would want LeBron James shooting ahead of Kevin Durant?
Well, I don't know.
For the last shot. Nobody. LeBron, listen, LeBron never claimed to be a shooter. LeBron James is the best player in the world because of the totality of the game that he brings to the table.
He could
drive
the basketball, right?
Listen, he can drive, he can handle, he can shoot it well enough from the perimeter. He can get to the hole at will. He defends, he rebounds, he blocks shots. He does it all. That is why LeBron James is the greatest player in the world. Nobody has ever. LeBron James has ever, as many times as you sat up here and said LeBron James needs to be in the dunk contest. Has anybody here ever said LeBron James should enter the three-point shooting contest? No. Okay. Nobody's thinking about that.
Wait a second. The last shot doesn't have to be a 30-footer. It can be a 3-footer. It could be a dunk.
But what I'm
saying, it could be a free throw.
That's right. It could be a free throw. It could be all of those different things. But when we're talking about the last shot, we're thinking about dudes who can shoot, who can put the ball in the hole. So when you think about guys like that, Melo's up there. Kevin Durant's up there.
Agree.
Kobe's up there. These fools that got Kobe at around 7%. It's because they don't know basketball.
It's the same ones who put him at 40.
Kobe Bryant is a shooter now. Kobe Bryant has been a shooter for years. In terms of his perimeter game, what he brings to the table from the perimeter, that's why. You know who I'm going to pick number one? Steph Curry. That's who I'm thinking about.
For the last shot?
Steph Curry.
I know he makes lots of shots. I'm going to
tell you. Listen, Steph Curry is such a lethal marksman that the minute he steps past half court in a clutch situation, you're petrified.
But I think you're confusing this poll, this category, with who's the best shooter in the game. That's not the question.
But see, what I'm saying,
you want taking the last shot.
I want
the last shot could be a drive.
It's not a confusion. I want the best shooter to take the last shot. I want the best shooter to take the last shot.
Even if it's a 25-footer.
Because, Skip, I want the best shooter to take the last shot. You know why? Because the best shooter, you can't foul him. Okay? You can't touch him. You got to put a hand in his face. You got to hope, because it's money from the free throw line. It's probably money from the perimeter. It's like Fright Night. Somebody who is a marksman, who is in front of your face with the game on the line, is the scariest dude in the world. Skip, you could be a locomotive, but if you got to go to the hole for your money shot, I want to defend you. I'm not scared. Put a body in front of you. I could draw an offensive foul. I can contest it, put a hand in your face. I could do a lot of things if you can't shoot. But when you could sit there and you're just butter from 19, 21, 23 feet and beyond, I'm petrified. And you shoot 90% from the free throw line. I'm petrified. The best shooter is the guy that I want taking that last shot, if I could pull it. Now, obviously, when I say best shooter, I'm not talking about a spot-up shooter like even though the Paxes and the Steve Kerrs of the world or people like that. That's Jordan feeding them the ball. I'm talking about somebody who's a marksman but also can create their own shot. That's Steph Curry to me.
You know what I'm talking about?
What are you talking about?
Who has the biggest clutch gene? I'm talking about if your life is on the line, who do you want pulling that trigger for you? And again, I'm not even sure I want Kevin Durant taking that shot.
Who do you want?
And again, we'll just quickly on Kevin Durant. We know, and I'm not going to beat this dead horse again, but 2 playoffs ago when he was by himself, no Russell Westbrook, against the the Grizzlies. Okay, but he went 4 straight games, late and close.
One series.
He stunk it up.
He didn't stink it up last year.
Last year. What timeout? Timeout.
Go.
The shot of the year in the NBA. As far as the Oklahoma City Thunder were concerned, what happened in overtime? Game 6, San Antonio at Oklahoma City. You remember this? Kevin Durant had the shot of the night. It's 110-107 Spurs at that point. 17 seconds left, and he missed it from the left wing. Did he not miss it? He missed it.
Bayless.
Wait a second.
Go on.
Who made the shot of the night that night? Who made the shot that took that game into overtime? Who made the shot?
We
27 seconds left in regulation. Manu Ginobili made the biggest 3 of the NBA season. He took that game into overtime. Do you remember that shot? It was huge. You know who I want taking my last shot right here, right now? Manu Ginobili.
Manu Ginobili?
If it's for the championship, I want Ginobili taking it, because when it's time, when they're in trouble against Steph Curry and company 2 playoffs ago, remember that shot?
No disrespect, because I can't sniff at Manu Ginobili. He's big time in the clutch. I know that. You ain't wrong about bringing up his name, but I'm saying to you, when you look at a pure shooter like a Steph Curry, I want the ball in this man's hands at money time. I'm sorry. When I look at all of these guys, and obviously you think about Kobe, and I believe in Melo too, by the way, but Skip, the greatest of them all, Michael Jordan, the GOAT himself. Oh, remember that commercial?
I know.
He driving to the United Center, and then you hear his voiceover, and you hear him chronicling how, you know what, all of these times I have failed, and then it goes black. That is why I succeed. There is nobody that makes every shot, every clutch shot, etc. But if I had to bet my money who's going to deliver for me a majority of the time, I'm sorry.
Are we talking regular season or playoffs?
It don't matter. I'm telling you right now, when it comes to shooting the rock, I pick nobody in the NBA right now ahead of Steph Curry.
Oh, wow.
You know what?
I believe.
If we're just talking about any time, any place, any night, I'm going with Kevin Durant because I thought during his MVP run last year, he made a whole collection of huge late shots for that team.
To me, I didn't see that. You know what I saw? I saw a guy that is such a freak of nature at 7 feet, can handle, can just do it all and can shoot. Half the time, Kevin Durant was obliterating you to the point where there was no crunch time.
Yeah, but there were some games last year late. That game in Toronto that went to overtime, he made
that was a big
10 clutch shots.
That was a big time performance. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so Clutch Gene, Manu Ginobili.
Thank you.
That's what you say.
I'm talking about playoff shots.
Big-time,
season-changing shots.
And I'm not talking about that.
Austin Davis is making a name for himself as an NFL quarterback after completing 18 of 21 passes against Seattle in a 28-26 upset win. Davis has modest numbers in the game, but he certainly has at least one admirer, that being Brett Favre, saying, quote, Austin can definitely play at this level. Not to sound off my rocker, but Davis, in my mind, can be the next Tom Brady or Kurt Warner. Brian Hoyer as well. Austin, like those mentioned, just needed a legit opportunity. Touchdowns and only 4. Let's see. He's had 9 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions so far this season. So let's talk about him. Do you think he, in fact, could be what Brett Favre says he is? We welcome back. Antonio, can you tell us if you think he's off his rocker? You agree, disagree?
A little early. 5 games into it, career starts. But I do look who he's going against. Seattle, Dallas, San Francisco. Pretty good football teams. Yeah. Not bad numbers. 66 completions. Doing a great job of getting the ball out. Obviously needs more weapons around him. So before you sit there and claim somebody, what's the supporting cast? Now, is he making throws? Was he thrown into the fire premature? Yes. Is he handling it well? I think so. But you're talking about a guy who's been in the league, bounced around a little bit from team to team. Sometimes it's a moment that you're looking for from a quarterback. That last week in Seattle, I can say there was moments in the game you say, wow, this kid can really play. But to go that far to say Kurt Warner, Tom Brady, future Hall of Famers, I think he's ahead of himself.
Well, I didn't note this. Brett Favre obviously went to the same school as Austin Davis.
Still biased.
Yeah, so he could be speaking, you think, maybe with his heart?
No, he is. It's definitely with his heart. And you're trying to pump even more confidence into a young guy who you probably mentored. So you got to look at all those different factors that play into it. But, when you look at the body of work, the kid is playing pretty good football for a team that you would have not thought could have beat Seattle last week. Yeah. Played tough against Dallas, even though with the interception. So you got to give him credit, but again, I think that's looking too far ahead right now.
All right, Brett Favre, his comments.
Kid deserves a lot of credit. He's performed well considering the circumstances. And you just have to give him credit where credit is due. At 2-3 with him as their starting quarterback. He's gotten in there with some stiff competition. But it's 5 games as a starter. And for Brett Favre to mention that, why am I not surprised? It's Brett Favre making news for something other than his Wrangler jeans commercials. Congratulations. The bottom line
I don't think he has those anymore.
He does.
It's like Drew Brees has those.
Who knows?
I thought
who
Brees
knows?
took over.
And maybe it's something else now. But listen, Brett Favre speaks. We need to listen because he's one of the great ones, and we understand that he's a future Hall of Famer. And I look at St. Louis right now, and I just don't see a lot of weapons. They got to get their act together. The Tavon Austins of the world, the Zach Stacey's of the world, and others. But I love their defense, and we know that. But I've been impressed with what I've seen from Austin Davis. I watched him against the Philadelphia Eagles that whole game, and how he almost brought them back to win that game. I mean, he's got a lot of potential there, but it's 5 games. Pump the brakes a little bit. Let's not get too excited because, again, the second we do, who knows what's going to happen.
But are you suggesting Brett is off his rocker? You've suggested that before on the show many times.
I will say this. Austin Davis got talent. He's no scrub.
Yeah,
He's
I
no
agree.
scrub.
Okay.
I'm just saying Brett should stop there.
I'm with you on that. It is Southern Mississippi to Southern Mississippi. And for the record, this kid was a walk-on at Southern Mississippi. Mm-hmm. This speaks to what an inexact science, and Antonio can appreciate this, that college recruiting and NFL drafting are. Complete inexact sciences. You just don't know. He walks on at Southern Miss, and a year later he starts breaking records at Southern as the starting quarterback. He is an undrafted free agent, and he bounces around, as Antonio said, and all of a sudden he gets a 1,000,000,000-to-1 shot in St. Louis, and guess what?
That one shot.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, again, I didn't know Tom Brady was Tom Brady that first year when he took over for Bledsoe. Even after the Super Bowl, the upset win, Brady threw for 145 yards against the St. Louis Rams. Remember the big upset in New Orleans? Yet Brady did, when it was clutch time, he completed 5 out of 8 in that final drive that set up the Vinatieri field goal that won that game. Huge upset. But I still didn't know if Tom Brady was Tom Brady, so we got to pump the brakes just to see how he continues to evolve. But I see moxie in this kid. I see a much better than average arm. I see better than average athletic ability. I see him be able to move around. I see toughness. I don't see weapons at the wideout position. Tavon Austin has been a disappointment to me. But Jared Cook's big time now. I mean, that's the one weapon he does have. And ironically, Jared Cook dropped a touchdown pass that hit him right in the hands that probably would have beaten the Dallas Cowboys in that game when they were up 21-0. And later in the game, in the early fourth quarter, he dropped a touchdown pass. But I think Austin Davis has a real shot at being really good.
Yeah, perfect coach to play under as well, right? Jeff Fisher, kind of a gambler. I think we saw that with special teams.
Did we?
Give you an opportunity, and you got to give the kid credit, like you're talking about. Undrafted, walk on, against all odds. This is the underdog, right?
I give Austin Davis credit. Let's stop there for a second because I need to get back to something else you said. Are we sure? Why do we have to believe that Jeff Fisher is the perfect coach?
For the Rams?
For Austin Davis.
Well, I think you look at his body of work from Tennessee. You look at.
Well, I'm thinking about everybody from Steve McNair to Vince Young, and I mean, they were all right. They were good.
Yeah, but you look at what he surrounds that team with. He's going to be smart. You're going to put your quarterback in favorable situations. Look at the running game last week. Okay. All of a sudden, where Mason come from? Then all of a sudden, bam!
Yep.
He bursts on the scene.
Ray Mason can play.
Now you get a play. So just the game plan, understanding how the National Football League, how to put pieces in place to make your quarterback look better than maybe he is.
I just play devil's advocate. I know Fisher can coach his butt off. I'm just saying that the man's been around a long, long time to not have a Super Bowl ring. Yeah. That's my issue with him.
And I never forgave
Nothing
him.
else.
He never loved Vince Young. It wasn't his choice to draft Vince.
Too much Ray Lewis and the Baltimore Ravens back in the day, too. Well, that's a problem.
Okay, so listen, let's talk about the game tonight. The top two teams in the AFC West battle for first place when the Chargers face the Broncos. According to NumberFire, Denver has a 71% chance of winning tonight's matchup. So we're talking about the Chargers in this particular case, AP. What chances do you give them? Oh, okay. So those are the chances you give them for an upset?
No. This is an upset about to happen.
Oh!
Right now.
Oh, good. Look at that.
All the Peyton Manning, all the Denver Bronco fans.
All right.
Get ready for this. They're top 5 in the NFL as far as defensively, the Chargers. Their offense, second overall on third down. What does that mean? The chains are going to move. What happened last year? They kept moving the chains, kept the clock moving. Third overall defensively on points per game.
Yep.
They do a great job when you watch them as a team game planning versus the Broncos. They match up well. They, for some reason, get a little bit more up for this game, as you can say. And Phillip Rivers is probably tired of hearing about who the best quarterback is, even though he is in that division.
Yeah. That's right.
And he's been playing outstanding. Should be an MVP candidate as well. So with all that being said, and I'm thinking Brandon Oliver, for some reason, is my little key factor guy this week. I think he's going to have a good game in and out the backfield. Turnovers is another thing the Chargers do well. Something that Denver can get exploited on. So with all that being said, this game is made up, short week, emotional, high. Who did Denver have next week? Patriots.
Ooh, yeah, at Foxborough.
So maybe some game planning, some things are going in advance. I don't know. This looks like a game, just like last year, where the Chargers can go in here and get a win.
What about the other Brandon, as in Flowers, who is out with a concussion?
That's a problem. Obviously, if you don't have your secondary, I think another corner is missing as well. But they can create pressure up front. They can maybe confuse Peyton Manning. Could that be possible?
I don't know.
No.
Possible.
You sure?
No.
Not at all.
No,
Okay.
I don't believe that San Diego can confuse Peyton Manning, not for 4 quarters. I think they could throw a monkey wrench in things for a quarter or a half, but not for an entire game. No, I don't believe
Maybe when it matters, though.
Okay.
Maybe
That's
when
fair.
it matters.
That's fair, but if you don't have all your personnel, if you've got injuries,
They
particularly.
didn't have the best personnel last year. But
I got you. They're the number 3 ranked defense against the pass. They're not to be underestimated. We understand that. But I think the combination of it being a short week, them having to travel on the road, them being 4-1 against
yeah, but that's a
Denver.
short travel, right? That's a short travel.
But them being 4-1 against Denver, in their last 5 meetings, I think Denver's up for this game. I think they handle their business.
Convincingly, right?
Yes,
Yeah, what did you pick
37-20.
at 37-20? That is
Wow.
very convincing. Antonio Pierce, I sure hope you were right because I got the Chargers dethroning the Broncos and winning the AFC West. I don't love this spot for them. I feel like it's wrong place, wrong time. They did win there last year, Week 15, remember, 27-20, and I agree with your premise of match up well, know how to play. So on a short week, clearly there's not a lot of homework to do. They just know. And Eric Weddle running that secondary, he just knows where he's supposed to go and where not to go, and a little bit how to, quote-unquote, confuse Peyton Manning. But I just feel like the euphoria that was created on Sunday night, the record-breaking euphoria in that stadium, will carry over into Thursday night. The Broncos are flying high, man, and their defense has risen all the way up to 6th in points allowed. It is, I have to admit this, it looks significantly better than it looked a year ago. Right now. I'm not saying that's going to stand up. I hope it doesn't. But right now, obviously they're first in points allowed because they're always first. I mean, in points scored. But points scored and points allowed, the combination of that, this is looking like a football team in Denver, right?
yeah, but I'm still going to go with it. I think the Chargers, with their head coach, knowing that offense very well, that's the advantage that I always see with the Chargers and the Broncos matchup, even when they split the games.
Yep.
It just seems like the Chargers have a little something extra when they play the Broncos.
Now, they knocked around Peyton pretty good in the game in San Diego last year. They beat him up. Remember, he was a little gimpy after that game. So I'm going 32-17 home team tonight.
What's your
What do you
score?
got?
Got 24-20.
All right.
Holding
Chargers.
Peyton to 20 at home.
They didn't think that happened in the Super Bowl either.
Yes. You see? Listen to what he's saying. This man knows his stuff.
He does know his stuff. I hope he knows it about this game.
It's about defense.
All right.
Denver Broncos will not be held to 20 points on their home turf. That will not happen.
Gentlemen,
Hey,
let's.
this man coaches football.
He
You know
knows,
that.
and you've got them in a. What are they, playoffs? What are they doing? What's going on with
Long
your
Beach
boys?
Poly.
Probably we 7-1.
Man, 7-1. You know what they're doing.
Listen,
Yeah.
listen. When he he'll have as much as I love my man here. He'll have more credibility with me when he finds T.J. Hushmanzada.
Uh-oh.
Still in AP
Here we
playoff,
go.
and we can't find
Here we
him.
go.
Well, I
help
still
us
put him on
find him,
Scout.
maybe.
But
He's still hiding.
I'm going to see if I can bring him with me tomorrow.
Still hiding. Let him come. Let him
Okay.
come.
It's a
Wait a
bobblehead.
second. If you're here, I assume he's there coaching, right?
You know what? We take our turns. Just like when he was there.
Listen. I ain't questioning his coaching ability. He just need to give up the prediction business.
He's breaking down film right now. We got playoffs coming up.
We are going to talk about one more last topic here. Let's talk about the Jay Cutler, our favorite discussion on the show here. Jay Cutler has been under some heavy criticism this week from both inside and outside the locker room after the Bears' home loss to the Dolphins last Sunday. Well, now, former Bears linebacker Brian Urlacher is voicing his thoughts on Cutler. This is what he had to say. Financially, he is one of the elite guys in the NFL. He just hasn't produced like an elite quarterback. You look at the Bradys, the Mannings, the Rodgers, the Brees. Those guys win every year, even with no one around them. You look at Jay, he's got Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, Matt Forte, this great offensive line, Martellus Bennett, and they can't seem to put it together. Wow. Makes a case. Skip, your take on what he had to say.
My take is you have to put this in the perspective that Brian and Jay Cutler never quite got along as teammates to start with, so there's a little lingering animosity between them. But I think that Brian Urlacher knows he is preaching to the Chicago choir right now, because right now there is a rising anti-Cutler chorus that is hitting a crescendo in Chicago, Illinois as we speak, because they are sick and tired of Jay Cutler. And even though I love the school that Jay went to, I'm sick and tired of watching Jay Cutler because he is not living up to the money he just got paid by a GM who even this week earlier continued to support the decision he made to commit long-term to Jay Cutler. I don't think it was a smart decision, and I think he is now strapped with Jay Cutler as opposed to benefiting from Jay Cutler. And I do think Brandon Marshall lost his emotions a little bit after the game and finally briefly turned in the locker room on his soulmate Jay Cutler and said, "You're not living up to your contract," in effect.
Nothing wrong with that. Preaching to an anti-Jay Cutler, so says Choir, so says.
I'm confused because wasn't Urlacher the guy who came to his defense 3 or 4 years ago when we all talked about Jay Cutler pulling himself out of that championship
early
game?
on, but then they parted ways.
So which way are you going now? You know, back then he was elite. Back then he was your guy.
Yeah.
Now he's like, whoa.
That was
now
early, Jay. That was like
so
the first
my
year.
problem with Urlacher is, maybe, get that mic in front of you is different when you're a teammate. So what should you have said when he was a teammate? You should have said what you're saying now. So my point is, I'm really calling out Urlacher on that one.
Okay.
Because he should have said that same thing back in the championship game when we all felt that guy should have been stayed in the game, especially the game before the Super Bowl.
I ain't getting caught up in any of that. Only thing that matters to me is the factual information that he's pointing out how Jay Cutler simply has no excuse. Now, our editor, Chuck Solitero, reminded me just the other day of Jay Cutler and some of the personality issues because I forgot I don't have the email in front of me.
Diabetic.
But he's a diabetic, type 1 diabetes, that's it, and how it affects your mood. And
he sometimes seems
so he seems low-key, a bit melancholy. Chuck, and I appreciate Chuck reminding me of that. My point is I respect and understand that. Somehow, some way, though, I don't think that's what Jay Cutler was looking like when he signed for over $50 million again.
He didn't look
I kind of
melancholy.
I kind of recall him smiling that
he
day.
Was happy.
So if you can smile that day,
good body language.
And you got Alshon Jeffrey and Martellus Bennett and Brandon Marshall and Matt Forte and an offensive line that protects you, and you can smile that day while you were cashing that check. What's the problem now? I want to hear that.
You don't want to hear it.
I want to hear it.
And he does get pretty fired up when he yells at his offensive line.
He's not melancholy then.
Please.
Okay, not a bad mood then. Okay, all right.
Don't want to hear it.